Yo, what is up, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video. Today, we're going to be talking about what's next for the Philadelphia 76ers. For the second year in a row, they've bowed out in the second round despite having championship aspirations. It was a weird year for the Sixers in whole with the Ben Simmons saga. Of course, you had, is Doc Rivers the answer at coach, the midseason James Harden trade, the Embiid injuries at the end of their playoff run, just kind of a lot of things going on. And heading into this offseason, there are a lot of question marks and a lot of things that we need to kind of talk about. So let's talk about them. Real quick, please leave a like and subscribe if you do enjoy. It helps me out a ton. Let's get into it. Starting off, of course, with Joel Embiid. He's going to be here next season. He's one of the best players in the league. He's been second in MVP voting the past 2 seasons. He's a consistent factor. As long as Embiid is healthy, he's going to give you amazing stats. He's going to perform. And even when he's hurt, playing through the injury over the course of this playoff run, almost the whole thing basically, with that thumb injury against the Raptors, and then at the end of the Raptors series, breaking the orbital bone in his face, playing through that despite just coming back from that in a concussion in 3 games or 4 games against the Miami Heat after missing the first 2. The fact that he was even able to go out there and play, I think, is a huge testament to how much he wants to win and his competitiveness as a professional basketball player. So I just think Embiid is one of the best players in the league. I'm not concerned about him at all. Obviously, you need him to be healthy, but to me, it felt like it was just kind of a couple freak accidents in this year's playoffs. If Doc Rivers had taken him out a little bit earlier, maybe he doesn't get hurt. Not that that was Doc Rivers' fault, in my opinion. But just say one thing goes a different way, Embiid doesn't get hit in the face. Maybe the Heat series changes. It's just unfortunate luck for Joel Embiid. As long as he's healthy, he's going to be one of the best players in the league. So I'm not concerned about him at all going forward. He is incredible. But around him, that's where things really get question marks. You've got, of course, Doc Rivers, as I mentioned. Is he the head coach that this team needs? And to me, I don't think so. I think Doc Rivers hasn't done a great job since being in Philly. He said this weird quote after the game where he said, when I got here, no one expected us to be anywhere, which is just not true. They had Joel Embiid. I think everyone kind of expected them to be pretty good. But, maybe that was just me. He just doesn't feel like he has really the fire that this team needs. It feels like they need some kind of change. It feels like they need a refresh after 2 really weird seasons where they fell short. And I just don't think Doc is going to give them that. I would have loved to see them go and get a Mike D'Antoni, who it seems like might end up as the Hornets' new head coach, which would be very fun to watch. But I just would love to see them kind of make some kind of change. Doc, to me, just doesn't feel like a real needle mover. He feels like very average, like middle ground as a coach, and I don't think that's what the Sixers team needs. I think they need a better coach, a new face in that locker room, but Daryl Morey confirmed today in their post-game press conference, or post-season press conference, I guess, that Doc Rivers will be the coach of them next season. So, I guess we're just going to have to go through it. If they underperform, maybe there's a chance Doc gets fired. But to me, it feels like Doc Rivers next season is going to be coaching for his job. And if they fall short once again, we'll see. But they really do need to kind of take advantage of this window because Embiid, while he's playing at this MVP caliber level, you don't know how long it's going to last. You just saw James Harden kind of have a regression season. So I think moves like getting a new head coach, making some big trades if you have to, like dealing Ben Simmons for James Harden, I thought was good because you've got Embiid playing at this MVP caliber level. You need to take advantage of that. And I think firing Doc Rivers and hiring a new coach would have been another example of them committing and saying, all right, Joel, we're trying to give you the best chance to win. We're going to switch things up here, but maybe Joel Embiid vouch for Doc Rivers. I don't really know. Either way, I don't think he's really the answer at coach, but he is going to be coaching them next season. Beyond that, you've got James Harden, who they traded for, like I said, at the deadline. He now is eligible for a big contract in this offseason. If he does sign the max contract, he'd be making $60 million at the age of 37. There is no way he gets that deal. It's not going to happen. The Sixers, I don't think, are going to offer that to him. There is no team out there that is going to offer James Harden $60 million in a few seasons after the way he played this year. I wouldn't be surprised if some teams do try and throw him some money, but I think that the Sixers ultimately are just going to retain him. I think they're going to give him the most. They give him a chance to win right now, and as he's getting older, I'm sure that ring is weighing on his mind. So I expect that James Harden will be back. The question is, how good can he play? Because this season, we saw he kind of lost a step after the hamstring injury last year. He really hasn't been the same since then, this whole season. He had a slower first step. He struggled to create space a little bit more. He struggled with his aggression at sometimes, especially in the playoffs. Last night, only shooting 2 shots in the second half of a pivotal elimination game. I don't know why I can't say that word right now. But overall, just James Harden really kind of struggled to find his aggression at times, find a middle ground between playmaking and scoring. It felt like some games he would kind of just be like, all right, this is what I'm going to do this game, and then would just kind of continue to do that, whether or not the situation called for it, which I think is not the way that it should be. He should continue to be fluid, and I think having a full off season and a training camp and a whole season just in general to build that chemistry and work on things will kind of make this team better, and he'll maybe find his role a little bit more. But overall, James Harden is going to have to play better if they want to win the championship. He's going to have to be a better scorer. He's going to have to find that balance a little bit more, and I do think he can. I really do still believe in this Joel Embiid James Harden duo. I think it is a duo very much capable of winning a championship when surrounded with the right pieces, and I think that is part of the important part, is finding those right pieces to put around those guys. But for me, I do think, of course, like I said, Joel Embiid is, in my opinion, one of the best players in the league. He's top 5. James Harden, when he is healthy, when he is playing up to the level we know he can play at, well, hopefully he can get back to, he's one of the better players in the league as well. So overall, he's got to find that balance. They've got to figure things out. Hopefully, a season of rest and rehab, maybe for that lingering hamstring issue, will kind of get him back to not necessarily the level we've seen in the past, because I do think just natural decline, he's not going to be putting up like 30 points per game like he did in Houston. But if he's just able to kind of get back to like mid-20s with some decent playmaking, it's going to go a long way for the Sixers. Beyond those guys, of course, like I mentioned, you've got to surround them with the right players, and there's already been some issues with that. You have Danny Green, who was really solid in these playoffs. He got hurt last night, tore his ACL, which, fingers crossed, is not, but may be the end of his career just with his age. Hopefully he's able to come back and play at some point, but Danny Green is not going to be playing next season, so that's a big loss for them, because their other option at the 3 is Matisse Thybulle, and while he is great defensively, he is so limited offensively that it really hurts this team. There are many games, like the Miami Heat, for example, were just leaving him open from 3, which is something they saw with Ben Simmons. I'm sure Sixers fans were getting flashbacks to that, but you can't have someone who can't really score from the outside when you have Joel Embiid on the court. The whole purpose of having Harden and Embiid is to attack the paint, kick out the shooters if they're not, stop it, or if they're stopping the drive, and if they're not, to dominate inside. And if you can't shoot, it's just not going to work. So either Thybulle has to figure that out, or they need to come up with another 3-and-D option, which I think is the way they're going to have to go. I just don't see Thybulle developing a reliable 3-ball after being so poor offensively over the course of the season. I just don't think it's going to happen in 1 year. And like I said, you've got to take advantage of Joel Embiid now. So I wouldn't be opposed to trading like a Matisse Thybulle to a team for a decent 3-and-D player if there's a rebuilding team out there. Maybe you make a move like that. They've got to bring in a better backup big. Paul Reed is all right, but to me, he's maybe a little bit more of a 4. I think that bringing in maybe like a guy like Derek Favors from OKC as a Thunder fan, I think that he could be a decent option, but just getting a serviceable backup big, which they've really lacked. They did have Drummond, who was pretty solid this season, but obviously had to trade him to Brooklyn. Maybe they go after Seth Curry, who's a free agent now, to bring in some shooting, bring him back to Philly, maybe something like that. He was sitting courtside at one of Philly's games, so who knows? Just bringing in some shooting, bringing up some better backup guard play. Shake Milton was decent, but I do think you could bring in better backup guards, wings, forwards, just really increasing the depth of this team, which I think could come from maybe, now that Danny Green is hurt, you deal his contract to get some money off the books and try and bring in some decent role players maybe for him, for a team that's just trying to clear up cap space in general. Maybe a team like OKC, like I mentioned, you trade him there along with like a 2nd round pick and get back like a Derek Favors and maybe another role player. Maybe you could do something like that. The big thing that a lot of people have talked about, really at the trade deadline especially, is maybe a Tobias Harris salary dump. I don't necessarily love that, just because they still are really in cap hell when you have Embiid and you're going to sign James Harden to a pretty big deal. Even if you do trade Tobias Harris, he's not going to give you a lot of flexibility. And so maybe keeping Tobias might just be the move that you have to go with. So I think that Tobias is going to be here to stay, and that they're just going to have to try and fill it out on the edges, build around Embiid, Harden, Tobias Harris, and Tyrese Maxey, and see where you can go from there. But if you can combine those guys with decent depth, I do think there's a really good roster there. Now, last guy I kind of want to talk about, because I do believe he is potentially the key to this whole thing, is Tyrese Maxey. Maxey was so damn good this season. He was one of the most improved players in the league. Even if he didn't finish as a finalist, he was incredible, stepping up in Ben Simmons' role as the starting point guard at the beginning of the season. He was efficient, scoring from inside, outside floaters, driving to the basket, one of the quickest players in the league. He was incredible. He did such a good job of filling in that role. And if he can continue on this trajectory that he's on, he might be the key to this thing. Because even if James Harden is regressing a little bit, as long as Embiid is playing at an MVP caliber, you've got James Harden still playing well, and you can get some decent play out of Tobias. If Tyrese Maxey can continue to grow and maybe reach like borderline all-star level play, that completely raises your ceiling, because he's a guy that when he was drafted was kind of looked at as like Ben Simmons' backup. But now that Ben Simmons is gone and Tyrese Maxey has really gotten a chance to flourish, if he can continue to develop and get better, especially while he's on his rookie deal, giving you a lot more financial flexibility and getting more play than he's really making money for, that's huge for this team. So I think Tyrese Maxey might be the biggest key to this team going forward. We know what we're going to get from a lot of the other guys, but if Tyrese Maxey can continue this trajectory, get better, continue to improve, be an outside scorer, and be a consistent threat to score, opening the game up for Harden and Embiid, I think that goes a long way. So for me, Tyrese Maxey's development is the biggest thing the Sixers really need to focus on this offseason. Get him in the gym, get him going, and just have him be ready for next season to really maybe be his breakout year, which if Tyrese Maxey breaks out into a borderline all-star level player, the Sixers have a decent shot to win the chip, in my opinion. So I don't think they're in that much trouble. There are definitely moves that have to be made, but I think there is still a pretty good future in Philly if they can figure some things out. So those are my thoughts on the Sixers. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. I'd love to hear them. But for right now, I appreciate y'all watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you all later. Real one, say it back.